Happy birthday to you. Open your eyes.
What is it?
Open it.
What is it?
It's a crossbow.
Are you sure?
Has that ever happened to you? Somebody handed you a box full of stuff and said, here's a crossbow, and it doesn't look like anything you've ever seen that you'd call a crossbow. Well, today's video is dedicated to trying to get you started on the right path with that new crossbow. We're going to walk through how to assemble it, how to operate it, how to maintain it, so you can get the most out of your crossbow and enjoy it rather than just becoming a great big headache. So stay tuned and we'll get started next on Trinity Wild. Hey everybody, thanks again for tuning in to Trinity Wild Crossbow Channel. No, not Crossbow Channel. I'm sorry, I know I keep saying that, but here I am doing another crossbow video. Hey, it's gear review, it's outdoors, and it's what I do every day. So what I want to do, there's a lot of things that I see people do incorrectly when they bring crossbows to me, and literally every day. Calls on the phone rings off the hook. Hey, I got a crossbow problem. Hey, I got a crossbow blowed up. It's because they don't know. And a lot of times people have, hey, I've been hunting all my life. I've been hunting, been shooting guns all my life. So the crossbow's kind of the same thing, right? No. And I say as a joke, some of these high-end crossbows really are just rifles with training wheels. The Ravens, the 10 points that are shooting 450 feet per second. I mean, that really is just a rifle with training wheels. What we're going to deal with today is what we would call a price point crossbow. The ones that are cheap, that you got on sale at Field & Stream for $250. Somebody got it at Walmart for $100 because they didn't know what to do with it. You found it at an estate sale and you gave them $50 because it's just a box full of parts that you don't know what it is. These price point basic crossbows have a lot of things in common. They have a lot of problems in common. But if you don't know what you're doing, you know, you can put them together and end up putting yourself in a situation, actually dangerous situation, because really when these things are cocked, you got a bomb sitting in your lap. And if you don't know what you're doing, you do something incorrectly, you truly could be, put yourself in some real danger of getting injured. So let's look at what a typical price point crossbow would look like, maybe in the box, kind of give you the ideas, because there's a lot of things that are similar. And with the high-end crossbows, they're all over the place. With the basic crossbow, there's a lot of things that are similar. So let's go through that, kind of go through the parts, how to put it together, how to operate it, maintenance, and all that kind of stuff. So let's get started. Here's how we started. So we're going to unbox everything and just kind of let you see what all's in here. Now, you know, earlier, these are the instructions. Chances are, if you are a female, this is where you'd start. If you're a male, no. We don't even see those. That's only in an emergency, and that's like saying, oh man, I'm defeated. So anyway, there's that. Comes with that, you got a sticker. Always got to get a sticker nowadays. But this will have all your instructions, all your part list and all that kind of thing. But of course, us guys don't want to fool with that. We just want to move on to the good stuff. So here we go. Let's look at, most crossbows are going to come with 3 bolts, 300 grain field points. Now that's another thing too. If you're looking at a crossbow that says, like this one here, is a Blackhawk 360, that usually means your crossbow is set up to shoot at 360 feet per second. That's with a 100 grain field point or broadhead. If you decide to use a 125, that's fine. And I'm going to talk about that here in just a little bit. But it's no longer going to shoot the speed that the crossbow says. 100 grains, that's what that is. Quiver, and again, this is pretty much all your price points are going to look like this. You're going to have a quiver, cocking rope, cocking mechanism. This is your quiver bracket. Again, this being a Wicked Ridge, this is a really, really good quiver bracket that's kind of a new design. It's not the old school cheap one. This is a really good one. You're going to have a little pack with all your nose bolts, all the bolts that you need to get your quiver set up and all that kind of thing. Usually a pack of Allen wrenches, because you know us guys never have enough Allen wrenches laying around. You're going to have, this is just a cleaning cloth and thing for you. This is your scope stuff, and this is going to be the stock, the barrel, stirrup that's going to go on the front, and your riser, limbs, cam, string. This right here is the one that causes so many people problems. This is called, right there, see that? That's your cable slide. So many crossbows now, especially some of your price point crossbows, Barnett especially, a lot of them have done away with this. But years ago, when they had, what was it, the Game Crusher, that had this little thing, and I don't know how many times I had people come in where this was missing, and they couldn't understand why their cables, you know, after 20 shots, my cables are destroyed. It's because you just took this and went, huh, I don't know what that is, pew, and tossed it away. All right, so let's look at just that. There's your overview of what's going to come in most every price point crossbow box. Now let's look at how, again, most of them, not all of them, but most of them are pretty much going to go together the same way. Here we go. We'll start, again, stock, barrel. As we're looking at the assembly here, when you're looking at, if you were to look at the front of this, see that little ridge that's right down the middle? That means you've got to have a cable slide. That little cable slide thing. Some of them nowadays are going to have like a little Teflon or plastic so you don't have that ridge. But if you see a ridge, you've got to have a cable slide that's going to go between the barrel here and the cables. Otherwise, those cables are going to get chewed up and eat up very, very quickly. So let's see how that goes on. When you get your cable slide out and you look, you're going to see one side is higher than the other. All right, that's very important. One side is higher than the other. The way this is going to go on is you see the barrel slides in here, and you see the string is above the cables, right? So this is the top. The string's going to be above the cables. The string's going to ride on the top of the cam. Cables are going to ride on the bottom of the cam. Again, that's most of these crossbows are built like that. Your cable slide is going to snap onto the string. One side's high, one side's low. See how that cable is on top and that cable's on bottom? That's the high one. The high one is going to go up top, and you're going to snap it on, and it's going to ride just like that. Now then, we're going to center that up, and we're going to slide that into this piece here. String is on top. You do not believe how many times we see the string go right inside with the cable. Or somebody had to be really strong to do it, but put the cable and the string on top of the barrel. The cables roll under, string rides on top. This may seem really, really rudimentary to you, but yeah, I'm talking to people that just don't know anything about this. I'm trying to walk through this, so don't leave a comment saying, well, that's just stupid. Everybody knows that. No, everybody doesn't know that. I promise you. I've seen it more times than I want to say. So, again, cable goes underneath, string rides on top, just like that. All right, so I hope you can see that well. See the starting situation here. So that's going to come up, and you got that little barrel, that little hole is lined up. That's your centering up that barrel, just like that. And sometimes you're going to have to pull it back. See if I can show you this. Pull back on it, like that. And that way you can get it back and seated. Have to wiggle around sometimes. Back and seated into where the teeth go. So as you slide it down, you want to make sure as you're looking that there is no space between the riser and the barrel. See that? No space there. Some have a spacer. It's a little plastic piece that looks exactly like the front of the barrel, and it'll go right in between. Kind of show you that. There'll be a little black plastic piece that's got a circle and comes up and sits in between the barrel and the riser. This one does not have that. So let's go back and we'll put this back together again. So as it seats on there again, there should be no space between the barrel and the riser. If there's any space there, you got to look and see that it's not going to be crooked. It's not in there sideways. Again, if anything in here is loaded crooked side, you're putting yourself not only you're not going to be able to hit anything, but you're actually putting yourself at risk. Let's look at our packet here. So with the 10-point, pretty normal. You've got your nose bolt, you got a flat washer, and you got the lock washer. All right, whoop, I got that backwards. Looking at it upside down. It's gonna go the other way. Nose bolt through, flat washers on the bottom. See that? That now is gonna go down in the center. Just like that. And we'll take our Allen wrench, 3/16 I believe, and we'll tighten that down. Got the nose bolt tightened in. I do want to show you a couple of things. With this one, you've just got a single nose bolt. Most of your Barnetts are going to be the same way. Again, another price point crossbow, the Killer Instinct. You're going to have 3 screws, not big nose bolts. You're going to have 3 screws that are going to go, and this is going to come down at an angle. So you've got 1 in the middle and then 2 on the side that'll go in. But the same basic thing is happening, and we want to watch the same thing and make sure that there's no space between that riser and that barrel. With this one, with your 10 points and your Wicked Ridge, as you screw that nose bolt in, then you've got a set screw that is going to tighten your bolt to make sure that that doesn't come loose. And speaking of bolts, I don't know, maybe just every session or so that you're shooting, just take this thing, put it in your hand, and just kind of see if you're hearing any rattling. There's so much force being shaken into this thing after every shot. Screws, bolts rattle loose on these things all the time. If your scope rattles loose, you're not going to be able to hit anything. If that nose bolt starts coming loose or any of that starts coming loose, your bolts are not going to fly straight. Make sure just every once in a while, just take it, just bang on it. And if it's rattling, you're going to find it very quickly. Just tighten that screw back up. It's not a hard thing to do. That's some of your maintenance you need to do. Next thing we want to address is the stirrup. So the stirrup's going to go in, and I don't know, hopefully you can see that. There's 2 little notches. That's where the set screw is going to sit. So we're going to put that inside. Little holes here. Going to go right in there. And then those set screws are going to be, now with your older versions of this, there's a longer set screw that'll go in here where you put your quiver bracket. But this new quiver bracket, this thing's awesome. I mean, you don't have to do anything. So again, there's your set screw, and we want to notorious. These things are notorious for shaking loose. So you'll start banging on it, trying to figure out what is that rattle. You won't see the screw that's loose. That's because it's a set screw and it's down in there. So we want to tighten that up really well. Now, with your quiver, the way this quiver sets up, this is just a little Picatinny rail, and not all of them do this. Most of them are going to have a bracket that goes here. So as you look at it, you're going to have to decide, do you want your quiver set up so that your fletchings are coming out the left side or the right side? Completely up to you. Personally, if I'm going to shoot my crossbow right-handed, I would rather my fletchings be on the left-hand side. With this crossbow, and with many others that are set up like this, where you're going to be setting up your fletchings, your quiver is going to be here or here. Some of your there's barnets, a lot of them do that. Now, where your quiver will go here or here. Me personally, again, right-handed, I want this quiver mounted over here because I can shoulder it better with these bolts sticking back and poking me in the shoulder on the right-hand side. If I have a crank model, which again, we're not talking about crank models with these price point crossbow, you can add a crank to this. The crank itself is $250. Then I'm going to charge you probably $30 to put it on because it's a bit of a pain. But we can do that, so it would fit right into here if that's what you needed. Again, we're talking about the cheaper versions. Probably not going to have a crank. You're just going to use the cocking rope, which we'll set up in just a second. But you decide, where do I want my quiver? Do I want it on the right side or the left side? If it's just a pull rope cocking device, I want this on the left-hand side if I'm right-handed, so the back of these fletchings are not poking me in the shoulder. So you can see this quiver bracket, man, it's super simple. You're just going to loosen it, and all it's going to do is fit right into that Picatinny rail. And you just slide it as far back as you want it, set it, and you're good. Quiver attached. Quiver goes on. All right, now, you see what happened here? That's probably not the way you want to do that, right? So the way this one sets up is it's got a little angle to it. I can set it up straight too, I believe. No, it won't even set up straight. But you'll see it was set up for the other side. In order to make that go the other way, I just remove the screw, take that out, rotate it. See the little holes there? Makes it catty corner that way, and we just put the screw in the other way. So there's really nothing on here there's no need to panic. There's no need to get all bent out of shape. It's really simple. But one of the things it takes me, because I've done so many of these, I can build most of these type crossbows in about 6 minutes flat if I'm really moving. Whereas if I didn't know and I didn't have all my tools, like if I was using these instead of my regular tools, it would, 30 minutes maybe if I was reading the instructions, which I know you're not going to do. So that would make, that just makes it take a little bit longer. And then there that is. So that's going to go. So you got your bolts. Most of them are going to come with your 100 grain fill points. Slide those in. 1, 2, 3. There we are. And then that quiver just slides right in there. And see how now it's angled out. So now as I go to shoot, now that's not poking me in my shoulder, and I like that better. If you want it the other way, take it off, swap that bracket, spin it around the other side. It's really not that hard. Next part, let's set up our cocking rope. Doesn't seem like a big deal, can be a real big deal. Here's your rope. All of these, again, they've become different. You'll see in the back, you'll see a little lip that goes right behind. Some of your old crossbows will not have that. You'll just, especially these old 10 points, they don't have that lip. You're just supposed to grab it and cock it with your hand. And that's one of the questions I get a lot is, can I just cock it by hand? If you can, that's fine. Most of the crossbows, including this one, if you notice, it's pretty narrow. When you get this all the way back, the angle of that string is very, very steep. Even if you possess the strength to cock it, it's going to be really rough on your fingers. If you possess the strength to cock it, it's going to pinch your fingers in there really, really badly. And it's going to be tough to get them out. So I don't recommend that. Number two, you will, 90% of the time, if you grab this to cock it, you are going to pull one side harder than the other. It's just what we do. We're humans. That's just what's going to happen. So when you end up pulling this string back and one side sets off, well, you've just shot your, who knows where the bolt's going to go. The best thing to do, use your cocking device and let that do it, because it's going to be much more consistent. It's like the difference between shooting a bow with your fingers or shooting one with a release aid, a trigger release. It's going to be much cleaner, much more consistent. So just get in your mind, that's what you're going to do. Let's set this up. See how the hooks are? Those hooks are going to face up when they lock onto the string like that, okay? That's how that's going to work. Now I want this that's the opposite. When I hook that string on to, or hook that, when I hook that onto my string up, I want that out. Okay, I don't want it this way. I don't want that there and the handle in. Again, you're gonna have problems. You're gonna get this thing stuck. You're not gonna be able to get it out. You're gonna have to bring it to me. It's not something that's super hard to fix, but it's a big old pain, and you have to wait while I do that, and it may blow up on you while you're doing that. Just don't do that. Make sure that your handle is out on that side. We're gonna loop around the back, around that lip, right there, and then we're gonna come up on this side. Now, when you grab your crossbow, that's how you're gonna cock it. This is where the adjustment happens. This is no good. This is no good. Especially if you are a smaller person, when you stand in that stirrup and you go to pull this, when you pull it, you're gonna be here and not have any more strength or room to pull up and get the crossbow cocked. What I wanna do is adjust this so the handles are right there. The bottom has a knot. All you gotta do is pull that out and slide that handle up close to your hook, just like that. I like to tie it so I've got a little bit of tension, so I can just walk around with this on my string and not have it in my pack and tangled up and all that kind of stuff. This is where I want to keep my cocking rope, just like that. I'm going to guess about where that knot should be. Don't tighten it all the way just yet, because we're not sure. We may have to fool with this just a little bit. Run that back up and see. Okay, that's not tight enough for me, so I'm going to have to see that. I don't like that. It's up to you. I'm not the crossbow police. You can do it as tight as you want. Or don't do it this way. But this is the best way. This is the way you're supposed to do it. I'm going to make it a little bit tighter. And see if I like that better. And I do. So there's just a slight, actually I think I want it even a little bit tighter, but there's a slight bit of tension here, and that's where we do that. Once I've got this adjusted where I want it, what I'm gonna do is come in, tighten that up a little bit. I want that to be super, super tight. Some people like to tie a bigger double knot, and all I'm gonna do is cut it, give it about a 1/2 inch, cut it, and then burn it, of course, so it doesn't come off, so it doesn't ravel. So just tie it, cut it and burn it, and you're good to go with the cocking rope. Before we do anything, let's make sure to take off the danger tag. You don't get that taken off of there and you get that caught up in your trigger box, again, just gonna be a pain in the butt. You gotta come stand in line and wait for me to get to you and fix that. Setting up the cocking rope again, hooks are up, wraps around the back. Some of these crossbows now, you'll pull it around the bottom. I know Mission crossbows have a little orange piece here that goes here. Some of your Killer Instincts, I know, it'll come around to the bottom. You just, again, you have to look. It's pretty easy. You don't have to look at the instructions, guys. Don't panic. You don't have to look at that. You can find the little lip that goes right here. You'll find that it's pretty easy to see where your cocking rope is going to fit. Always, always, always make sure that as you cock your crossbow, it is on fire, all right? if it's not on fire, now not all of them are like this, but many of them, if it's not on fire, it's not going to cock correctly. Make sure it's on fire. Put your foot into the stirrup, reach down, grab your handles, stand and pull. Don't just do one, stand and pull. And by the time these handles get to your belly button, it should be cocked. Normally, you're going to hear 2 clicks. The first click is that string coming past the anti-dry fire mechanism. Then the second click is when it cocks. This happens really quickly, so it's kind of hard to hear, but there's 2 clicks that I can hear when I do that. Now I'm going to take my rope off. Hold that, put that back in my pack, put that back in my pocket, and I'm ready to go. Now that we have our crossbow cocked, we're ready to load it. If you look at your bolt, most of these price point crossbows are going to be a 20-inch bolt. Some are 22, but again, you're going to have some bolts that come with it. 9 times out of 10, the bolt that comes with these crossbows are not very good bolts. Take a little bit of a step up. Your crossbow is going to shoot a lot better if you get a little bit better bolts. Easton makes a good one. 10 Point makes good ones. Just I would step up and get a little bit better bolts than what comes with these crossbows. But most all of them, again, are going to have, now this is a 4-inch vein. Some of them are 2-inch veins. I don't know that it makes a huge difference. Just be consistent. The bolts that you use to sight your crossbow in should be the same ones you hunt with. Don't sight it in with this and then go buy a better bolt to hunt with. They're not going to fly the same. With a crossbow, with a bow, anything you do different, if you change anything, you change everything. So try to keep consistent with what you're shooting. But again, odd feather down, just like that. It's going to slide in, and underneath, what's the retention spring right there? That's going to hold the bolt still. So if I'm standing in a tree stand and I aim down, it's not going to slide. If it does slide, very easy to adjust that spring. Flip your caps up, moment of truth. There's your safety. I'm going to get to my target, safe, fire, and pull the trigger. Simple as that. Let's talk real quick about sighting this crossbow in. Most all, again, of these price point type crossbows are going to come with a scope that just has a couple of lines on it. All of them, you want to sight them in that top, whatever the top line or top dot, you want to sight it in at 20 yards. That does not necessarily mean the next line or the next dot is going to be 30 yards. You've got to experiment. So what we're going to do is we're going to sight this in at 20 yards with the top dot, okay? What you'll have to do then, back up to 30. Chances are your next line or your next dot is going to hit a little high. Back up and shoot again, back up and shoot again, until that second dot or second line is matching where you are. Range again. So your lines may be set up at 20, 38, 43. You don't know until you shoot it. Reason for that is this particular scope sits on a crossbow that shoots 360 feet per second, 390 feet per second, 300 feet per second, 400 feet per second. It's all over the place. Unless you have a scope that has the ability to dial the speed of the crossbow in, you've just got to experiment, and they're all going to be different. You're just going to have to do that. If you use a different bolt, if you use a heavier bolt, it's not going to be the same. But again, first thing to do, get it sighted in at 20 yards on the top, and then just move yourself back until you figure out where the second line, third dot is going to be. So I'm just going to show you, actually, these come bore sighted. I'm going to mess with it. It doesn't take me more than 3 shots to get one pretty well sighted in. So I'm just going to show you from 20 yards how quickly I can get this thing sighted in. It doesn't take long at all. Okay, so 4 shots, but who's counting? But I just went in and I didn't show you real close. So you got turrets, just like you do on a rifle. You just take the turret caps off and you'll see up and down. If I need the bolt to move up, I turn it towards where it says up. If I need the bolt to move left, I turn it towards where the bolt says move left, okay? So that's pretty simple. One of the things too is if you're used to sighting in a rifle and you're at 100 yards and you shoot and you think in your mind, okay, I need 3 clicks to the left. If you're looking at this, give it 6. If you think it needs 2, give it 4. Whatever you're used to doing, if you think you need to move that thing over 4 clicks, move it 8 clicks. That's just a rule of thumb. That's what I found kind of works for me. So that's as far as sighting it in. Now let's talk about maintenance. Maintenance is really simple. What you need to make sure you do is wax your strings, lube your rail, check your strings for wear and tear, and get them replaced when you need to. That's pretty much it. If you'll do those 3 things, you won't have any problems with this crossbow. If you don't do those 3 things, or if you don't do them enough, or if you do them too much, the same thing, you're going to end up having some problems. Your rail lube, this one comes with a little bit of lube. You're going to put just a little drop here on top of the barrel, a little drop here on the back, rub it in. How much lube do I put? Just a couple of drops every 10, 15, 20 shots. Don't let it go over 20 shots without putting some rail lube on here. String wax, much less frequently. Let's talk about that for just a second. String wax, not serving wax. The serving is the protective wrap around the string. This one's real simple. All the flow orange here, that's string. All the black is serving. There's no need to put wax on your serving because you're just wasting it. It's not doing anything. The wax, what that's going to do is really the same thing as earwax. It keeps the junk out. So you're putting wax right here. When you put the wax on, take your finger, sorry about the plane overhead, the wax on your, take your fingers and burnish it, kind of rub it in. What that's going to do is heat it up a little bit and help it go into the strings. If you just take your wax and daub it on the outside, it's not doing anything. It's just sitting there. So wax your string, lube your rail, check your strings. Definitely check the main parts for wear and tear. Right here next to, remember we talked about with the cable slide. Right there next to that cable slide is where you'll see the most wear. Again, if you're looking how this barrel, this string is being constantly pushed up and these cables are being pushed down. See how they're at an angle? So there's a lot of pressure being placed upward into that barrel, and from your string a lot being pressed downward. So every now and then, grab that string, let me get these hooks off, grab that string and just rotate it and look at the bottom. If you're beginning to see flat spots, you're not lubing your rail enough. It's beginning to melt that protective serving. When that serving snaps, and it will, it's not going to blow up in your face, but when you see that snap, when you see that break, when you see these fray and come apart and begin to unravel, time to get a new string. You got to look at strings almost like a new set of tires. You're not going to get 200,000 miles on a set of tires, right? You're not going to get 2,000 shots on a crossbow string. My bowstring probably has, I'm going to guess, 6,000 or so shots on it. And for me, about 7 is the most I'll put, and it's about time for me to get a new bow anyway. So 6,000 or 7,000 shots, but you don't have the same kind of friction on a bow that you do with this. If you're looking for a hobby, I want to stand in my backyard and I want to just shoot, this is really not the way to go. Get a bow and, you know, develop that skill. People ask me all the time, which should I get, a bow or a crossbow? Are you looking for a hobby where you can get into and learn and hang out with people that do the same thing, and you can talk bows and learn about it and go off into rabbit holes about arrows and techniques and things like that? Get a bow. You want to kill stuff? Get a crossbow. That's what this is for. It's not made to be shot 2,000 or 3,000 times. Not on this set of strings. Now, over the life, certainly. But some of your higher end bows, 300-400 shots is all you're going to get. This one, putting lube on the rail, you know, 400 or 500 shots, it's time to get a new string. There's no need for you to put 500 shots on this string in a season. I'll put 500 shots on my bowstring in a weekend. It's not the same here. I don't need to. It took me 4 shots to get this thing pretty well dialed in. Once it's sighted in, put it away, leave it alone. I don't need to stand out in the backyard. Sure, every now and then break it out, make sure your scope's on, make sure you haven't dropped it or anything's off. That's great. But again, it's just not it's not meant to be shot like a bow. This is meant to be sighted in like your gun, put it away, and you're good to go. So lube, string wax, rail lube, string wax, check your strings, replace your strings regularly. That's really all the maintenance that you need. Let's go from maintenance now. Let's talk about troubleshooting. What can go wrong? One of the main things is that I hear, this thing's shooting all over the place. That could be any number of things. First thing you do, check your scope. Make sure your scope is not loose. Like I said earlier, just kind of give it one of these. If you're hearing rattling, just make sure all your screws are locked down. Nose bolt, make sure that nose bolt is locked in. Make sure your scope is all tightened up and locked in like it's supposed to be. 9 times out of 10, that's it. The timing is one of the main things that can happen on a crossbow, whereas your cables over time will stretch. Depending on the crossbow you get, if you get a price point crossbow, 9 times out of 10, the strings they put on those crossbows are one step up from garbage. So when you get that price point crossbow, you get that Barnett, you get that, especially if you got it used, a Barnett, a Killer Instinct, a Bear, a Center Point, any of these crossbows that when they look used, even if the strings look good, bring it by, let's take a look at it, bring it to your local shop, because chances are you're gonna need a string. 150 bucks every few years is not really not that bad to make sure that this thing stays operational. If you'll do that when they put the strings on, if they know what they're doing, they're gonna do a couple of things. They're gonna make sure your cams are timed. That's one of the things that can happen that you can look for. Now, some of them it's very easy to find, other ones it's not. On this Wicked Ridge here, let me see if I can show you. There are 2 dots. And these are called timing marks, and they're on either side of the limb. But it'll be on the cam, and this, I don't know if you can see that very well, but there's a little indention on the cam, one on either side. So I've already looked at these, and because it's brand new, that timing dot, that little dot is on either side of the limb, perfectly centered, perfectly centered. That should be all you need to look for. Now, if you look and one is off center and the other one's centered, or they're both, one's above and one's below, that's what's causing you the problems. What's happened is your string has, your cable has stretched, and now your cam is out of time. And what that means is your cams are not rolling over and releasing at the same time. You've got one going before the other one, which is causing that arrow to fly like this, and you're gonna get all kind of crazy flight with that. So that could be one of the things. Again, it could be now I've had, again, talking low end price point crossbows, I've had several in every one, not just one, but every Barnett's, Killer Instincts, Center Point, every single one. I've had somebody bring one in, I can't get this sighted in, and I start fiddling with the scope, and the scope won't adjust. There's no movement in it at all, and so it'll get a bad scope. Every one of those companies, when I call them and say, hey, I've got a bad scope, you know what they do? They go, okay, and they send me another one. But that's pretty, as far as troubleshooting goes, one of the other things that happens is people will, I cocked it and it won't shoot. Here's one of the things. So again, as we're looking at this crossbow, let me see if I can get this a little closer here. So if you're looking in here, this right here is your anti-dry fire. See that? That little deal right there that raises up and down. That's your anti-dry fire. Sometimes what happens when you, especially if you're a little bit of a shorter person, maybe you're brand new to this and you're a little weaker and you go to cock that crossbow and all it did was catch on that anti-dry fire. And it didn't come back all the way and cock the crossbow. How do you know that happened? What did we say earlier? Always keep it on fire. When this thing comes back and actually gets cocked, you're gonna see this go to safe. If it's not on safe and the string is back here, it's not cocked. It's stuck on that anti-dry fire. What do? Well, you don't need to come to me. All you got to do is put your hooks back on, stand up, and pull again until you hear it click. But again, leave it on fire. And when you stand up and pull, you'll see click, and it comes all the way back. You're good to go. So anytime it just won't fire. Look, just take a peek in there and you'll see if it's caught on the anti-dry fire. If it's caught on that little tooth, I guess for lack of a better term, and it's not all the way back into the trigger mechanism, no big deal. All you got to do is put your hooks in, recock it, and you should be fine. So to wrap up, as we're talking today about price point crossbows, if you're unsure, bring it to your local shop, let them look at it and check it, and just make sure. It's just like if you were going to buy a used car, you know, take it to your favorite mechanic and let them look it over. Same thing here. We can spot trouble that a lot of people don't even really think about. You may look at a crossbow and go, wow, that looks great, and then we look at it and go, no, you don't have a there's no this right here, there's no retention spring. I've seen many people come in and bring, I can't get this thing to go, and the retention spring has been bent all the way back into the trigger, and it's because somebody put the cocking rope in the wrong place and bent that trigger back, or there's not one. Well, heaven forbid you load a bolt in here to shoot, and if you're just standing out in the driveway getting it sighted in, you're going to be fine. But all of a sudden there's no retention spring in here, and you're standing in a tree stand and you go to do this, and that bolt slides just a little bit forward and it's not up against your string. When you shoot, your string is going to hop over that bolt and it's going to blow this thing to heck. Big deal. I can get that fixed, right? But what happens when it scares the crap out of you and you fall out of your tree stand because it blew up on you? Man, look, these things are nothing to be playing around with. It's not a gun. A lot can go wrong here, but if you go through the steps that we talked about, pay attention, do your maintenance, follow up, and practice with it enough that you're comfortable with it. Don't practice to the point you've worn your strings out. Don't practice to the point you've got 1,000 shots before you ever take it to the woods. But again, don't get it out of the box and take it to the woods either. Get familiar with it, understand the different things that can happen to it, and you should be fine. And if you got anything out of this video, please give us a thumbs up, like and subscribe, just like we always say. If you have any questions, please ask me at the bottom. We're still a very small channel. I can get back to any questions you might have. If you have anything, if I forgot something, or if you have a question that you've seen happen to your crossbow that I didn't address, just ask. I can either answer it in the comments, or I'll be glad to, heck, I'll do another video for you. I don't mind. But anyway, that's it for today. And again, we'll get on from this crossbow content before too long and get to doing some other stuff. But thanks again. Appreciate you tuning in to Trinity Wild. Like and subscribe. And again, hey, turn that computer off, put that phone down. Let's get outside, get wild. Thanks for tuning in, and God bless.